Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, fa'auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. Wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, and welcome to another episode of Muslim Inside with me, rajaziaulhaq. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about liberalism, or you can say the history of liberalism. But before we get into that, let me just take quickly some of your comments and questions. We have one from Islam Path to Success, and they've commented that someone should write this, make notes of this videos and share it. So that's a good idea. I think there's Sister Sabah who usually does that on the live chat, but inshallah, if somebody could put all of this information together in the form of notes, then that'll be great, excellent, and it'll be a great resource for us to share with others. We have a comment from Neon, and they've said that this man really understands modern day youth problems and he's working on it. Atheism is like fire spreading in our youth and destroying our ummah, and youth needs people like you, Ziabai. Jazakallah khair for that comment. Modern problems require modern solutions. Youth these days needs reasons, needs science. Gone are the days when just Mohalle wale Mullah Sahab was enough. May Allah guide us all. Ameen. Ameen to that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you for your comment. We have another one from Azhar Yusuf saying, MashaAllah, not heard such a logical discussion on this topic before. So helpful, eye-opening. Allah bless you. Jazakallah khair for your comment as well. We have another one from Sultan Siddiqui. He says, Assalamu alaikum, watching from Nepal. Some atheists believe this universe was self-created. Theists believe God was self-created or uncreated. The common point is that both believe something came from nothing, but the atheists don't want to accept theists' view. That's very correct, because for us, when we say that God Almighty, what we're saying is we're claiming lack of knowledge, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we know that there is an originator of the heavens and the earth, and we don't know much detail about his world, right? So we, like when the last time I gave the example that if there are bacteria inside of this watch and they are trying to figure out how the watch works, they have no clue about who I am, right? If I am in fact the watchmaker. So likewise, we as human beings living on this planet, living in this universe, are claiming ignorance with regards to, we know for a fact that someone did in fact create this universe. It couldn't have come out of nowhere. But we don't know much about the creator except whatever he has told us. On the other hand, the atheists, rather, what they are saying is that no, the universe came out of nowhere, which in fact is defying all laws of physics and everything that the atheist would actually stand for. So therefore, a huge contradiction. So inshallah, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides all of those who are seeking the truth, and inshallah gives us the tawfiq to teach in the best of ways. Now today, inshallah, we're going to talk about liberalism, and primarily the history of liberalism. And this is going to go on for a few episodes, inshallah, because we really want to understand how the world is working nowadays. So the thing is that if you go back to the 1500s and even before that, 1400s, you find that Europe was going through what is known as the Dark Ages. And this was a time when the kings were rulers. They had all of the power and the authority, and they were mostly following pagan religions, pagan traditions, and things of that nature. At that point, the Catholic Church was slowly but surely gaining power. And it was gaining power in the form of masses coming towards Catholicism. It was at that particular point in time that there was a kind of merger or a contract between the church and the kings. So whether you look at England at that time, or Germany, or Italy, all of these nations were being headed by kings and monarchs. And so the trade-off that happened at that point in time was that the kings were told by the church that we can help you. I mean, you have money, you have power, but you don't have popular support, meaning that the large amount of masses are not with you. So we can give you that, because obviously people are following Catholicism, and so we can give you that support in the form of a worldview that these people, these kings who are ruling over you, have been ordained by God. So it was kind of like a meal deal that was struck between the kings and the church. So the kings basically gave the church lots of wealth, lots of money, and in return, the church, what it did was, it told people, it kept them at bay, it kept telling them that these people, even though they are putting taxes on you, even though they might be oppressing you, but these people are ordained by God. They have been sent by God to you guys, so you just have to deal with it and just have patience. Basically, no matter what they do, just have patience. Now, what happened as a result of this was that the kings got wealthier and wealthier, and the church also got wealthier and wealthier. And in the meantime, the people became poorer and poorer every single day. They were mostly peasants and farmers anyway, and with all those taxes and everything, they became very, very poor. So what happened was that in 1517, a religious movement started against the church, and this was the Protestant movement. What was the claim of this particular movement? What they said was that anyone should be able to read the Bible, because the Catholic Church was preventing people from reading the Bible. And they said that the final authority should be with the Bible, not with the Pope. Because as per Catholicism, the final authority rests with the Pope. And so if the Pope says anything is permissible, that becomes permissible. If the Pope says something is impermissible, it becomes impermissible. Again, using the same logic that popes are also ordained by God. So you can't really challenge their authority or their opinion. So the Protestant movement was a religious movement that started against the Catholic Church, saying that everyone should have the right to read the Bible and to, come to conclusions and things like that. But the church kind of stopped them in that. And so a lot of people were killed in the process, that you don't have the right to do this, only we can tell you what to do. And so this is why the church was trying to keep a hold on the people itself and to maintain its own power. And so now sentiments were developing amongst the people that we are being oppressed by the church and obviously by the kings as well. On the other hand, another movement started, it took its peak around the 1700s, which was a movement by the philosophers and the scientists of the time, who basically, whenever they came up with a new scientific discovery or they came up with some new information, the church would oftentimes refute them, saying that you are heretics, you have left the fold of Christianity, you are no longer people who are believers in God. So all of those claims were actually projected on these people, and many of them were executed if they made any claim. For example, like Galileo, when he made the claim that the earth is round, he was immediately labeled a heretic, that this is against the teachings of the Bible. Anybody who came up with some other phenomena, scientific phenomena, natural phenomena that went against the Bible, automatically these people were put like on a death warrant, basically, and so they were executed. Many were killed, many had to flee and run away. So now what happened is that all of this is building up into a very, very hostile environment. People who are religious are opposing the church and the kings, meaning the Protestants. People who are not religious, who are scientists and philosophers, are also opposing the church and the kings, because of the sheer amount of oppression that was going on at the time. And then it was the masses of poor people who were peasants and farmers who just couldn't keep up with all of this anymore, because they were getting poorer and poorer every single day. Their lands were being taken away. All of this thing was being done. So what happened was that this resulted in one of the most bloodiest revolutions in the history of mankind. The French Revolution is also one of the episodes of this entire revolution, where the rich monarchs and kings were dragged from their palaces and brought to the town centers and executed via the guillotine or hanged or things of that sort. So it was one of the bloodiest revolutions, where people basically took back the control and started to kill the top 1%. The top 1% of the population, which was basically comprising of the kings and the church. So all of this basically set the stage for the Enlightenment era. So all of this period that I've mentioned was basically the Dark Ages, where the kings were unlettered, they could not read or write, the streets were filthy, people were in very bad situations, science was not being allowed to progress, the church was bullying everybody, and so it was an absolute mess, which is known as the Dark Ages. Now, during this time, when all of this happened and when the revolutions took place and all of these people were killed, now as a result of that comes the Age of Enlightenment, or what we call the Renaissance period. In this period, what happened was that now that you've gotten rid of the church and you've gotten rid of the kings as well, and even to this very date, by the way, the church and the kings don't have any real power in the West. Like, for example, I was living in the UK for many years. I did my bachelor's degree from there, and I went to see the Buckingham Palace was there when the Queen's birthday was being celebrated each year, and she was given a gun salute, cannons being fired and all that. I traveled to different churches and cathedrals as well, and what I've observed there is that the churches don't have any real power. You walk into a church, very ancient church, huge, massive building, but there's no one there. And when I asked one of the caretakers that where is everybody, I was told that, come back on Sunday. And even when you come back on Sunday, you find maybe 15, 20 people. So a lot of these churches have had to, sell off their land, a lot of times to mosques actually, because they simply cannot maintain the expenses of keeping that place in check. So we find that in Europe primarily, and in the West, for example, in the US as well, the church has very slowly been losing its power. On the other hand, you have the kings as well. And the kings all over Europe don't have any real power except for the fact that they are a very rich family and there is some cultural association to them. But really the rules and regulations and the laws are being made in the parliaments, not with the kings. It's not a decree of the king that this will happen and so be it. It's not like that anymore. So basically West kind of teethed itself out of church and the kings as well. So when these revolutions took place and both of these institutions lost their power, now there was a power vacuum that was created. Meaning that people thought, okay, look, before the church used to tell us what to do, the kings would rule and govern. Now we don't have any of those. Now we've pretty much removed them from the equation. So how do we rule ourselves? So in this melting pot of ideas comes about ideas of liberalism, secularism, feminism, atheism, materialism, individualism. All of these isms and schisms start popping out of everywhere. And so people now decide that, we will basically decide what is good for us and what is bad for us. Because for all of these years, the church used to tell us what to do. But now we will decide what is good and what is bad. So in this vacuum now, new ideas are coming about. Something that you have to keep in mind here is that since forever, religion has always had a very important role in society. And religious people have always been revered, they've always been respected, and they've been known to be people who are maintainers and collectors and protectors of revealed knowledge. So this is what the general claim is. And people who are religious, no matter what religious background you might have, there are three things that are essential to any religion. Number one is belief in God. So there is a belief in a God. Number two is belief in a soul. That you are not just a body, but rather there is a soul as well, which is the reality of who you are, your soul. Because your body is going to remain here and it's going to become dust, but your soul will basically move on. And the third concept was a belief in the hereafter. So the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, they have a very similar belief in the hereafter. Even if you look at, for example, the Hindus, they have a concept of reincarnation, something of an afterlife. So these three things are of primary importance in any religious environment. Belief in God, belief in the soul, and belief in the soul from which spirituality comes about. That, I'm trying to be spiritual. I'm trying to nurture my spiritual self. So spirituality, and then belief in the hereafter. Now, when this Enlightenment era came about, basically what people decided was that these three things were the source of our destruction. These three things we've never seen. We've never seen God. We've never really seen the soul. And we've never seen the hereafter. So because of these things, the church was basically the evil one. The church was telling us fairy tales, trying to keep us at bay, trying to control us, manipulate us, by telling us stories of fictitious things which we've never seen. So talking about God all the time, talking about a soul, talking about the hereafter. So all of these things, because the church was wrong, all of these three things are wrong as well. So we need to come up with three new things. So from now on, we will not talk about God, because God, nobody knows who God is or what God is. We'll instead talk about the universe. So you might find this language in modern day, for example, text that, the universe designed something, or the universe planned something, or it was Mother Nature that created so and so. Okay, so how on earth did the universe design something? Where is the universe found? Does the universe have intellect? Does the universe have intelligence? Does the universe think and will things that it decided to design something? Or what about Mother Nature? Who is Mother Nature anyway? Is Mother Nature some lady living somewhere who we can meet now? Who is Mother Nature? So now, although they did get rid of God, but they came up with some new idea. So instead of God now, they have the universe. So we won't study God anymore, we'll study the universe. And it will give us success and prosperity. Instead of studying the soul, we're going to talk about the body. And we're going to proceed in studying medical science and all of that stuff. And instead of focusing on the hereafter, which no one has seen, we're going to focus on this world and explore in science and technology and all of those things. So there was a huge shift, which is important to understand, that in the 1700s now, there is a huge shift in the thought process, which started brewing in the mid 1400s onto the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, and now by the 1700s now, the ideas are being crystallized and refined that how are we going to govern ourselves. So you have people like John Locke, who can be considered to be the founding father of atheism, who comes up with his treatise on government, where he basically says that the government now is of the people, for the people, by the people. So we're not going to rely on scripture anymore. Now we're going to decide for ourselves what we want. So out of all of this mess that was created comes about this liberal philosophy. And what is the liberal philosophy? Is that these things don't matter. God doesn't matter. The soul doesn't matter. And the hereafter doesn't matter. You can believe pretty much whatever you like. You can believe whatever you like. You can believe in the tooth fairy. You can believe in the spaghetti monster. You can believe in whatever you like. You can believe in unicorns. But do it in your house. As far as running the show is concerned, we will do it ourselves. Human beings will decide what is good for us and what is bad for us. We don't need religion. And so we will now progress in studying the universe and scientific progress through medicine and all of that. So when Europe basically moved from a primarily a type of education system which was based primarily on revealed knowledge to a system that is now based upon empirical knowledge. Empirical knowledge, something that you can look and see and touch and taste and all. Something that's done in front of you, experimental things. When it moved from revealed knowledge to empirical knowledge, when it moved from spirituality to materialism, that we'll only focus on stuff that is in front of us, that is material, that's when the entire ideology changed, the worldview changed drastically. And so Europe did have success in that, by the way. Success from the point of view that new medicines were now being discovered, explorations were being done, scientific discovery was at its peak. Slowly things are now being refined and retuned in a way that now people are moving towards progress. So we have the railroads being developed, and the train comes about, and the cars and the automobiles and factories and all of that stuff now comes as a result. And so this is now the industrial revolution. We're moving towards a time when now it's the age of industry. So people are now moving towards that. So Europe visibly saw that, our experience with the religious lot was terrible. As soon as we got rid of the religious people and their religious philosophies, we progressed. Therefore, now we need to take this progress to every corner of the globe, and we basically pretty much need to shove it down people's throat. Even though they like it or they don't like it, we have to liberate people. We have to tell them that get rid of these religious people. Now just hold on for just a second here. Because right at the time when the dark ages were being experienced by the Europeans, in the Muslim world, in Middle East, North Africa, Islam was experiencing the golden age. Right at the same time when Europe was in its darkest hour, this was the golden age of Islam, whereby in the Muslim world, people, even children, were lettered. Forget about kings. I told you that the European kings were unlettered. They could not read or write. But even children in Andalusia, Spain, were educated. and there were street lamps, and they would wash themselves properly with soap. They would drink coffee to stay awake at night in order to pray Qiyamul Layl. They had irrigation systems. Medicine, we had the canon on medicine by Ibn Sina, and we had other people like Ibn Rushd and people who were mathematicians and polymaths, people who were geniuses in multiple fields. And at the same time, they were firmly grounded in Islamic theology. So you can just go on to Google after this session is over and type Islamic Golden Age. And the first article you find on Wikipedia, just read through that and just keep scrolling on and on and on. And you'll see the huge list of inventions and progress and discovery that was done at that time. George Bernard Shaw once said that if the Muslims were not attacked by the Crusaders at that time, and they were not pillaged and plundered, their houses were not destroyed and ransacked, perhaps in 100 years Muslims would have reached the moon, because of the sheer speed in which they were progressing. And it was these books of the Muslims that literally led the way for the Enlightenment era, even in Europe. These same books, a lot of them were taken to Europe and studied by the likes of people like Leonardo da Vinci and others, who basically now based their study off of whatever research had been already done by the Muslims. The Arabic numeral system and many, many other advancements in surgery, in medicine, in physics, in math, all of this was done under an Islamic rule of law, whereby Islam provided that platform. Because as far as Muslims are concerned, we have no beef with science. We have no problem with science. As a matter of fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages us to take that approach. As we've talked about previously as well, when we talked about Islam and science, we've already talked about that. So Islam is not against science at all. As a matter of fact, we say, go ahead and discover, because all of the Muslim scientists, in terms of, them getting closer to Allah, they would try to make life a little bit more easier for everybody else. Like, why did we come up with washrooms inside the house? Muslims were the first ones to build bathrooms inside of houses, because it was a need. So our women should not have to go out to the river to wash themselves or to make wudu or to actually wash clothing. They should have something in their own houses. So natural irrigation systems were developed in a way that water could be brought to every person's house, so that people don't have to go to the river. The river water can be brought to the people. People would make elaborate maps. Why? Because it was a necessity. People from all over the world were coming for Hajj and Umrah. So very detailed maps had to be drawn. People had to do studies in geography, in geology, in cartography. All of these sciences had to be studied in depth in order to come up with these things. Because people knew that we have to help people. We have people like Maryam Astrolabi, who made the astrolabe, the navigational instrument, so that the direction of the Qibla could be found even if you're at sea. You can find where the Kaaba is. Navigational instruments to lead the way for traders and caravans. So all of these discoveries were being made by people who wanted a better life for other people. Why? Because they were practicing Muslims. So our experience with religion and progress has been brilliant. But it was Europe's personal experience that was bad. It's like, let me give you an analogy. It's like a woman gets married to a guy, and the guy turns out to be an absolute loser and a wife beater and many other things, right? A horrible person. A woman gets married to a guy who turns out to be a horrible guy. And so she goes and tells all the other women that all men are like that. All men are going to be wife beaters, oppressive, abusive losers. This is an absolute gross exaggeration. And so this is exactly what Europe did. Europe had we agree they had a bad experience. Nobody is saying that the church was right. The church did a lot of oppression. The kings did a lot of oppression. But the thing is, the reaction of it was that get rid of church and everything to do with religion. And this is where the problem is, that they took all of that information and they brought it and they exported it to other parts of the world, even to the point that they came to our own country of Pakistan, India, Indo-Pak subcontinent. They came here, the British East India Company came here, and overnight they said that, all of your madaris, your institute, your religious seminaries is equal to zero. Anyone who now wants a job has to come into our education system, whereby God is no longer important. So you look at your education system now and see for yourself, where is God in your education system? How much do you talk about God in your education system? We have English, and we have language, and we have physics and math and chemistry and biology and all of these subjects. But they've removed God from everything. You might have a religious studies subject at your school, but even that is a very, very minor subject. It's not near as important as the importance we lay upon math or science. So the thing is, this is now a byproduct of that. What is liberalism in a nutshell? Liberalism basically is, or rather we'll talk about secularism, and then we'll explain liberalism in the next episode, inshallah. Liberalism basically comes from liberty, right? Liberty, freedom. You're free to do whatever you like. So you're not going to be bound by laws of Allah or laws of scripture or anything like that. You're at liberty to do what you like. Then on the other hand, you have secularism, which basically means that you no longer need the advice of religion to run your affairs. Secularism basically means that you no longer need religion to run your affairs. What is right, what is wrong, we will not ask religion. We will not consult religion. We will decide for ourselves. If we want to fornicate, if we want to deal in interest, if we want to make something okay or not okay, if we want to invade a country, we will decide that. Religion is not going to tell us what to do. So now this is where we are at this point in time, that majority of the world is living upon liberal philosophy. There's lots more to say in that, but inshallah we'll wrap things up here for today. I hope that you found today's session to be beneficial. Don't forget to share your comments and your questions in the comment section of this video. I will see you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Until then, do take care of yourselves. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.